Ooh, you got me just so crazy over you. We love Madonna, we love Madonna, we love Madonna, we love Madonna.
Hey everyone, this is Christopher Childers from Madonna's Girlie Show, and you're listening to MLVC, the Madonna podcast.
Hey guys, it's Tony, and I'm going bananas.
Oh, yes, you are, Tony. You and me and everyone else in this world. We're all just a little bit nuts right now. Hey, everybody. It's Steph, and welcome to another episode of MLVC, the Madonna podcast, your place for all things Madonna, Louise, Veronica Ciccone. We are so happy to welcome Christopher Childers to the show. Welcome, Christopher.
Thank you, guys. I'm thrilled to be here. Super excited.
We are super excited to have you. How's your day going so far?
It's good. I just finished teaching class, so I'm a little out of breath and frazzled, but I'm happy because I got that over with and it's done for the day. So now I can just relax and talk to you beautiful boys.
Well, thank you so much. We're just so excited to have yet another illustrious Girlie Show co-participant / co-star / I don't even know what I'm saying.
Icon.
Icon.
It's a lot of hats.
Yeah. But yeah, it's one of our favorite shows, so we can't wait to hear your take on what went down.
Your first-hand knowledge of being part of an iconic show.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind telling you guys, I woke up at 4 o'clock just remembering so much stuff that I just haven't really sort of thought through. And then I just was like, God, we did so much during that time. It was just incredible. There's so much that happened, you know?
Oh, so exciting.
Yeah.
We've had lots of your former colleagues on the show.
I know that, yeah.
MG and Carlton and Carrie Ann and, oh God.
Alex Magno, who worked on the show.
Yeah, so many people. We've had lots of stories, so I'm sure you're going to be bringing your own stories to the show as well.
That's for sure. I hope so.
Well, let me give you a proper introduction for those of you who are not familiar. After the Girlie Show World Tour, Christopher Childers bought a house in Las Vegas and created an entertainment company, as one does. He became the director and creator of Sandcastle Dinner Theater in Japan, Guam, and Saipan, after assisting the Foley Bergère director, Jerry Jackson, on that show in Vegas as well. He's done work with Cirque du Soleil. He's worked in Hollywood with director Sam Raimi on the Spider-Man film. He won over 27 different awards for his film that he directed and created in 2019 called Carnival of Wonders. Most recently, he opened a costume shop in Half Moon Bay, California, where he now resides with his husband, David, and he's writing a script for a new feature-length film, which combines the lost art of the showgirl told through a science fiction-based story. And also, you are currently teaching dance as well, correct?
That's it. I just finished teaching. It's funny, we were doing Deeper and Deeper. I do that. Most of my students are women of a certain age. They're, 40s, 50s, 60s. I have a couple of them in their 70s. And we do Deeper and Deeper, and I actually do choreography from the show. Little pieces of it, little chunks, and it's kind of fun. So we did that today, and they were so excited that I was going to be on this podcast. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah,
well, you're not doing anything involving a super large disco ball, are you?
No, not in the studio, although I wouldn't rule that out. You never know.
And when you're doing this recreation of the Deeper and Deeper number, does it segue into the orgy scene?
No.
Just checking.
No, not that. Boy, that was
that's a different class.
That's a totally different class. Oh my gosh, that was a great segment, by the way.
Since we're in the thick of Girlie Show already, let's start there. How did Girlie Show come your way? How did you get involved with that?
Well, I auditioned. What was funny is I had seen Blonde Ambition when I was dancing in New York. I was in Jerome Robbins Broadway. In fact, the first day of my show, Madonna had just had auditions for Blonde Ambition in New York City because one of the dancers in Jerome Robbins was a huge Madonna nut. He just loved her, named Steven, and he was saying, "Oh my gosh, you just missed this amazing audition." And then she came, of course, with that show, and I went and saw it, and I just was like, it was the best thing I'd ever seen. She was just large and in charge and fantastic. The dancing was great. And I just knew in the back of my brain, I'm like, I'm going to work with this woman. I have to be in one of these shows because it just blew my freaking socks off. It just did. I thought it was fantastic. So in June of 1993, I auditioned. I was living in LA at the time. And yeah, it was a long audition. I'm sure you've heard this from some of the other dancers. And I kept making cut after cut after cut. And then I made it to the finals. And I was working on a film called North, which was a Rob Reiner film. It didn't really do that well. Elijah Wood was the star. I was working on that film when I got word that I was cast in the Girlie Show, which was really, really cool and exciting. Yeah, so that's kind of how it happened.
Was that? So I don't know if a lot of the other dancers have ever expanded on this, Tony. When you got that call? I mean, this is before you can make a huge stink about it on social media. But what did you do? Did you go out and party? Did you like call friends and family and just be like, "You're not gonna believe this"?
Kind of, yeah. It was such a, I knew the quality. I knew from seeing her show that this was going to be something epic. Of course, nobody knew what this was going to be about. But yeah, I was completely bowled over, excited. I think we partied. We went out for drinks. I think tequila was definitely involved. I was with I have so many friends that are fans of hers too. So, there was also that extra they were just hitting me. They were like, "You MF." Can I swear on this?
Yes.
It's Madonna.
Oh, thank fucking God. So, yeah, they were like, "You little fucker," and they were hitting me. They were just, it was epic. It was just such a, it was like Christmas Day, it was fantastic.
Tell us about your featured moment in the Girlie Show where you're portrayed. This is like a big acting job for you, an overzealous fan, completely dressed up in the Girlie Show merch, who jumped on stage only to be revealed, surprise, as one of the dancers. Like, how was that devised and put together with you as a focus? I remember watching it on HBO because, obviously I wasn't in Sydney, Australia. And I was thinking, oh, that's got to be some random Australian they just gave a little talking to and he jumped on stage. But then as you see it develop, that obviously wasn't the case, right?
Yeah.
I think the moment you ripped off your shorts and there was a bedazzled pair of minis underneath, we knew.
I still have those. They're literally in my closet. People always ask me if I still have them. I took a photo of those and put them on Instagram, not with me in them, I will say. I was in prime shape back then, so I'm not going to.
Those were designed by Dolce & Gabbana, correct?
They were, which was just fantastic to have their costumes. God, I remember they just, sent tons and tons of stuff, and it was all on racks, all this fantastic, clothing and costume pieces. It was just otherworldly. It was fantastic.
No, I anyone that's been on the show from the Girlie Show, I tell them, I was obsessed with those Dolce & Gabbana white tank tops that you guys all wore. They were so good.
And we have so many, but they gave us tons of them. Of course, it was just, stacks of, like the one that I tore off as the crazy fan. There was just stacks of them. They had like a little pre-cut, kind of up here, so I could just grab it and rip it in one motion.
Sure.
But it's funny. I still have a full set of Girlie Show T-shirts. I'm like a hoarder, but a good hoarder. Like I keep things neatly stacked in little areas, and yeah.
You're an archivist. That's what you are.
Right.
That's it. That's exactly
what Girlie. I'm sorry, we're dovetailing because we do want to ask you about your shining moment where you disrobe on stage. What Girlie Show T-shirts do you have?
I'm trying to think.
All of them?
Three, yeah, pretty much all of them. The three that I have right now, the rest are under the house in a storage. But the one of her, the profile with the cigarette. The sex. She did that kind of. It's like a leotard with jewels on it, covering. There's like a close up of that. And what's the other one? Brain shoulders. I can't think of what it is. It's sitting in my closet. I want to dash it.
Right. Well, that's all very impressive. But did you also get to keep the matchbook and the condom, the official branded condom?
Yeah, all of it. Oh my gosh. I had the pen, the little pen, the pink pen where she her
gets naked,
somebody
right?
typed it. Yeah, I love that little pen, and somebody stole it. It was a bummer.
Of course. So tell us about that moment. How was that conceived? Who came? Was that Madonna came to you and said, "Chris, this is what you're doing"?
Yeah, her and Christopher, they worked super tightly together, hand in hand, and they would sort of talk to us before we would do something. They would say, "This is kind of what we're going to do," or if it was something. Which we can talk about the boxing thing. Like she sent us to boxing school because I remember she wanted everything legit. And she's like, you're not going to be on my stage unless you know what you're doing. But that particular moment, I remember Carlton and I were always running around like 12-year-old girls, like, because we're just dorks. So I was doing some like weird dance with my arms in the air and stuff. And I think it just clicked. They were like, you have to do this part, which I didn't realize about what an ass I looked like because Chris would say I would change it up on different nights, depending on the city. And I just was so in my element of like being focused on her that I wasn't really thinking about the way I was moving, I should say. And he'd always call it the monster mash, but he's like, you look like you're doing the monster mash. But yeah, it was just super. I think it was just, they saw me and they're like, you have to do this part. You're completely wacko. So yeah, I got to do it. I will tell you, in different countries, the security that was sort of around the front of the stage, it would be different in different cities. Some guys would just stand, but they had Uzis in a couple of the countries, these big, military rifles slung over. And I was like, I just don't want to get shot in the back. Like I kept thinking like, God, I hope. And of course, Christopher was like, we've made sure every country knows you're part of the show and blah, 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 blah. But those were kind of a little bit scarier moments doing that. But for the most part, it was really fun.
Yeah, I'd like to keep my job. Please don't shoot me.
Yeah, please don't get me. And then on the last night of the show, Earl and, Madonna's bodyguards. Anyway, they came out and they grabbed me and took me off stage in like 2 seconds because they used to stand post, of course, during the show in case anybody got on. And the last night, right when I went up to go get her, they came and grabbed me. It was really funny.
Oh, how funny. You didn't know that was going to happen?
No. And they're both like 6'4", Bob and Earl, I think, big guys. And I was gone and off. I didn't even feel it. Like that's how fast they picked me up and threw me off. They didn't throw me. They were gentle. But yeah. It was a blast to do that. It was really, really fun.
No, and you had a big responsibility, in addition to Madonna, you kind of had a moment to like razz up the audience, and you could feel that energy kind of, swell when you were quote unquote discovered, right?
That's totally it. And it was she was just fun. I don't know, everyone has a different take on Madonna when they work with her, but I always just remember her connections were fun. And when I would take that off and we go into deeper, it was such a great song and the dance was so great. But just that connection of that first, which she pushed me back when that part. And I just was like, this is so fucking amazing. It just felt incredible. It was so fun. And I felt like I started the number with her, the two of us.
You did.
It was so fun. It was a blast.
Famously, Gene Kelly was consulted for the Girlie Show, but a lot of people don't understand how much or how little, he had to do with Rain. So what was the process regarding engaging and disengaging with him during the creation of that number in the Girlie Show? Like, what are any recollections you have from that?
That was one of my biggest memories because it was, to be in that room with him was just, you're like it's a living legend in the room.
Yeah.
And of course, Madonna's there too, which is amazing, but you're like, holy shit, this is Gene Kelly. What I do remember is they did want to collaborate on Rain, and he was probably 83 at the time. And I just remember he would come, he had like a 20-year-old, I don't know if it was his girlfriend or whatever, but she'd get him all set up and bring him to the front to sit down. And he kind of had an idea, I think, in retrospect, because of the sex book, his idea of what he wanted Jill to do was, I don't know if you guys have heard this, but he wanted her to be in a sheer clown collar and be topless and do this point piece. And she was kind of like, well, I don't know if that really, I think he was thinking, oh, this is Madonna and sex. And like, I really do think creatively he thought he was doing his thing for her that way.
Yeah.
Because it was nudity and all that stuff. And she just kept saying, no, that's really not it. And he was like, well, maybe she, how about if, and he kept kind of sort of staying on that topic about the topless thing. And then at one point she said, well, you have to use my dancers, my boys, they're beautiful. I know, we've got great girls, but so then she kind of gives us the arm and we have to, we're not auditioning, but like, he's like, okay, give me a double tour, give me a double turn, do this, do that. Let me see your extension. And we're dancing and auditioning for Gene Kelly, the 4 boys. That's when my heart was like beating out of my chest. I was like, holy moly. Jesus, it was just incredible and amazing. The funny thing is though, that I do remember there was a moment, and it might have been even the second day, possibly the third day, and Madonna's like, "Oh, Gene Kelly's back." We were kind of like, it was very like that, like, "Oh, Gene Kelly." Like, I don't think,
Why is he here again?
Yes, yeah, and it's like, and she was so gracious about it because he's who he is, and I just remember thinking, "Oh my God, this is so bizarre," because it didn't work. Like the ideas just did not mesh. But the man is just a legend, and just to be able to dance and show off in front of him, I was so excited.
Yeah.
And Madonna, of course, was like, "My boys are beautiful." She was pushing us. And of course,
so
he was
funny.
wanting to be with the pretty girls. It was just very funny.
I love that there's always these moments in Madonna's career where she's working with these huge high profile people on things, and then nothing ever comes of it. Like if that was me working with Gene Kelly, whatever he wanted would have been in the show, whereas but Madonna was like, no, it's not working. Sorry. Next.
That's exactly, that's it. And she's so funny about it too, because everything, she's kind of like, well, I don't know, Gene's back, like Gene Kelly's here. She was very like that during the whole rehearsal process. Yeah.
Even so though, there was a big influence still on the Rain, Just My Imagination number, especially with the dancing interlude, when Madonna comes off the stage, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It was super, that video was just so beautiful. And, I think Erotica was such a great album. I mean, it was such an, to be on the tour after the Sex Book and Erotica was a really big thing. I mean, especially back then, because so many people had written her off. Like, this is it. She's done because of the Sex Book.
Put your clothes on, Madonna. We're done with you.
Right. And she's like, "Fuck you. I'm going on tour. Like, I'm going to tour this." And so to be in that group, it was just the whole experience was amazing. And I can't speak for her now, but then was so it was pre-baby. So she was kind of looking for suitors, and she was kind of vulnerable and very kind of quiet. I don't know. It was interesting, that rehearsal process. But I do remember oh God, Gene Kelly's back. Sorry, that's just good stuff.
No, that's funny. I have a couple more fangirl questions, so bear with me. So
Please.
As you mentioned, I love I mean, it's just so, I'm going to use the word iconic. I mean, the iconography of Carrie Ann coming down, and then the silhouettes of you guys boxing. Tell us about, because when you go see a Madonna show, the first number sets the tone for everything, and it shocks you and it energizes you. And tell us a little bit about your boxing training and what the sensibility was for the Erotica number.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I ended up when we were in New York, I went to her apartment, and she had a painting of boxers, two men. And I guess that's sort of where she always, loved the erotic element of that, boxing, and had this painting. But that particular segment, I think Jeffrey Hornaday had worked with us, and he had said, we were kind of hitting each other. We didn't really know what we were doing. And he's like, knock him out and then jump up and down. And that might've been the fan thing now that I think about it. But I started to jump up and down, and I was doing what he asked. And she was like, "You're not going to do that on my stage. You look like a total ass. That looks ridiculous." She's like, I was like, okay, like I wasn't going to throw him under the bus, but I was doing exactly as directed. But she was like, "In fact, you and Luca are going to go to boxing school." And I was like, shit. So rehearsals were they were crazy early, like 8. So we had to be there at like 5:30, and it was Mickey Rourke's gym. And he was there actually. And I remember the first day he was in bed, there was this really beautiful girl without her top on, just walking around. He took us into the thing, and it was a week of crash course intense. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I couldn't believe it because it was so early too. And that feeling when you overexert and you have that sick feeling, and then we have to go to rehearsal after. But I'm grateful for it because it really, it helped me appreciate boxing so much, and the core work and what it really all means, and how you sort of jab. And And we look more legit than we did before.
Sure.
Which is
so
important.
you were at boxing workshop at 5:30 a.m. and Carrie Ann was at pole dancing workshop at 5:30 a.m. and then y'all had to show up already tired and dance for 12 hours.
It was crazy. It was it's so funny too. I think back and think, God, that was just insane. But she's like, you're gonna take boxing, you have to look legit when you do this. It's funny with Carrie Ann's solo, which was so great. I was the understudy for that. Nobody else did it. And of course, if she ever went out, I was the one that had to do it. And I got to do it one time.
Right wow.
Yeah,
on the pole?
On the pole. When we I think we went to Sony Studios, and when the stage was first put together, and Madonna watched, Michelle stood in for her so Madonna could watch the show, and they asked me to go in for the pole. And it was really scary and fun, but I loved it. I was like, oh,
was that when Carrie Ann, because Carrie Ann told us that she had gotten injured one time and that she had to like sort of recover, and that they told her, someone's replacing you.
Thank you for, oh God, that's, you know what? That totally reminds me. That's exactly why I did do it that time too. She was feeling injured or had an injury. That was a really, God, that opening with her, that scale of like the clown looking up and you look up and up and up, and it's just so beautiful, I think.
So when you understudied for Carrie, what was your costume, Christopher?
Just a little tiny pair of shorts. They were like, little, it wasn't a G-string, luckily. Yeah. And even then I would have done it.
I'm actually surprised by that, because you think Madonna would be like, yeah, G-string.
Red sequin, here you go. They were just little tiny shorts. It was hard. That took a lot of core work. Even just that opening creep down. She had to creep down, and then you had to do kind of that frog leg position and, just hold that forever. And different countries would have different climates. So she's like, the pole was so sticky. And then she's like, I almost fell, but she had her safety. It was all that stuff. It was intense. She had to be on her game all the time. So it was a pleasure to get to understudy, even though I didn't get to do it. But just the one time. Yeah, it was great.
So another quick question is, actually, Carrie Ann told us that when you guys were preparing for the Justify My Love number, you guys got to try on clothes from MGM's wardrobe department from My Fair Lady. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that, and tell us how you approached the Justify My Love number, and how was it explained to you guys? Because it was very specific, and it was something that we had not seen on stage, even before in Blonde Ambition, in a pop show.
Yeah, that number was really, I still watch it and think, holy moly, it was so beautiful. It's like a Lewis Carroll, Alice in Wonderland-y, like all of that stuff was sort of in the concept of what they wanted to do. And of course the checkerboard, the big, the set piece behind us.
Almost like a Tim Burton film, but on stage.
That's so funny you said that. It's like we needed just an iron gate, like in the front of where the stairs were. It's very Tim Burton. But Carrie Ann's right. We went to see all these costumes that were just, that's another Madonna thing, like Gene Kelly, like, oh, now we're going over here to see My Fair Lady costumes. I'm like, wait, what? And it was, and of course we couldn't wear them. So she had them remade, which was, those hats the girls wore, those Carrie Ann and that beautiful cape, and Jill and that bucket style, that gorgeous lamp.
Beautiful costumes. Those costumes were phenomenal.
They were the best. And that was.
And just for one number, that's what I loved about that, was that you wait until the very end of the show, and here's this opulent, decked out to the nines costumes for 1 5-minute little performance, and then it's done.
Incredible too. And it's funny, all that 60s kind of movement. Of course, Carlton and I were working together for The Beast Within, which was our duet. So him and I were always kind of sort of together, and we ended up kind of creating a lot of that little 60s movement that we were doing, kind of from looking at Fosse style and different things. And Jeffrey would pull little pieces like, try this, do that, whatever. But yeah, to just go into that 60s thing at the end was just such a badass choice. And it was so fun to do,
I love that she ramped it up at the very end, where it was like, first it's all slow and dark and devious and sinister, and then all of a sudden it's like, and now it's like not doo-wop, but like now it's just like bebopping along,
it was like
and
doing the twist. No, I remember the first time I saw it, and probably the only person in the universe who had this interpretation of it. But I thought it was vampires. It was like this whole like Twilight people thing. And then at the end, it reminded me of Rocky Horror when they're doing the time warp. So, I mean, it's like you could draw
That's
so many things into that,
awesome.
you know?
I love that. It's funny you said vampire because of the sunglasses over, and we do
Yeah.
the monocles over the sunglasses.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's so interesting to that you saw it like that. I could absolutely see that. Plus the makeup and everything.
Yeah,
So
totally.
crazy. No, that was a blast to perform, and just a beautiful. That whole piece was just exceptional. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were some of your other favorite numbers to perform in Girlie Show? I mean, there were so many wonderful moments, but did you have one where you're like every night you're like, yes, I love this?
Yeah, I mean, Beast Within, I have to say, although it was really hard on our bodies because we were in the pole climber, those boots were so heavy, and we'd always step on each other's skin, and there was always a cut or a bang. But it was just, for her to just give the stage to us and let us do that. And of course, Christopher, it was the gays in the military thing at the time. So Carlton and I, and I remember in certain countries, he was like, do not back down, because we had some picketers in different, countries, anti-gay, of course. And he was like, don't back down at all. Give it 100, and he was always kind of pushing. So to do that piece was really, the adrenaline was so high. And it was so fantastic. And I think it was really beautiful. And then Carlton and I would go down at the end on the elevator, and we would just be out of breath. And he was just a great partner. He just took great care of me, and I tried to take good care of him as well. Of course, I was on him more. He had to lift me. So, yeah, that was a special, amazing moment. I mean, I love the orgy too. Speaking of the orgy, because, she was so funny. Like sometimes you'd end up, we had a blueprint of where we knew we needed to be when we began and be, for the next number. But it kind of changed, every night, and we would just get silly up there. I'd suck on her boob, and then she'd say something really off. It's all that great stuff where you're just like, oh my God, this is so funny and amazing. She'd whisper things in people's ear and just do that orgy. We were just shenanigans the whole time.
Oh my God.
It was shenanigans, and it was so funny. Like it was just, we're like grinding on each other and doing all this. Carlton's got his hand up everyone's ass, and you're biting Madonna's boobs. I'm like, what could be better? It was so much fun.
And you said that you were a fan of Madonna's before you were on tour with her. What was that experience like? So here you're a fan, and you love her songs and her music, and you followed her career, and now you're on stage with her. Was it every night that you would just be like, I can't believe this is my life? Or did you get used to it and you're like, yeah, this is my life? Yeah.
I mean, a little bit, but it's that thing, like when we opened at Wembley, that wave of the screams, I just wasn't prepared. Luke and I were up in the shadow boxing area, just waiting. But I just remember thinking, holy fuck, that wave of the roar of the crowd. Your heart just starts beating out of your chest, and you never sort of lose that feeling. You do get more used to things as you go on, but you shift and you notice different things. Like I said with Carrie on the Pole, like, the stage goes to all the countries, but the climates are like, you're sweating in one and then you're freezing in the other. So that was also kind of bizarre. But yeah, it was pinch me most of the time. Pinch me. I can't believe I'm doing this, because it just, and then we had the HBO coming up, at the end. So I was like, I was like, I have to eat really clean and work out, because, we were so naked in the whole show. So, but it was an amazing thing.
Well, you did a good job. I'll tell you that, because I remember when I was watching y'all, not a moment would go by where I thought, wow, Madonna hires really hot people.
That's amazing. Well, I have to say, that's funny, not to sidetrack, but we have a friend here that said, and this was something I never even thought of till after, as a young gay person watching us on stage, I've heard that people have thanked me for that. And you have no idea the impact you've had on my life and things like that. And I think, God, and it sort of hit me more recently how big that statement really is. And I think as a working dancer, I wasn't really thinking on those terms at all. So to hear that after, it's just an amazing thing. And of course, her to do that show, and have, these beautiful people out on stage. And it was really just unbelievable. unbelievable. So when I hear that, I still get blown away by that, you know?
Yeah, I recall Madonna doing an interview when the show premiered in London where she expressed, they asked her, I think, what were the differences between Girlie Show and Blonde Ambition? And one thing that she kept reiterating was that this is more about performance and endurance. She says that, the dancers are conditioned to, do all these physical feats. She kept going back to the circus, motif. And so how did you guys maintain that physicality, throughout the entire run of the show? I mean, how do you keep that momentum going? Because, you're boxing and, and on top of doing everything else, the beast within, that is basically basic training, right?
Absolutely. And I hate to say this, but I know I keep saying the HBO thing. Like we were all just like, we got to look good for HBO. Like,
Yeah,
well,
it's
at
a
least
lot of
I
eyeballs.
was.
I mean,
Yeah, and it's permanently, so we were constantly working out. Eating as clean as we could. Of course, we had her amazing chef with us who would make this incredible food. And I do.
well, and you're dancing in the show, right? I mean, like the show itself is a workout, and I'm
Right.
sure she still had you running the show when you weren't doing the show.
Of course, we were. I forget, we were supposed to have I think it was like a 3-day vacation, and on day 3 she called us up. Let's rehearse. And we were like, oh God, she just has to be in that mode. She's just A-type, and but I'm grateful because I feel like I was in the best shape of my life, and I'm grateful for that because God. Yeah,
I mean, I was happy she made you. I was happy she made you all wear skimpy little outfits.
Looking back, it was a beautiful group. The bodies were great, and I feel very, very blessed to have been in that because of that reason. It's nice to even look back and go, "Hey, I looked pretty good back then."
Damn, I was hot.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, something else that must have been incredible was traveling the world with the Girlie Show, because Madonna for the first time went to such far-flung locations as, Israel, Turkey, Australia. I'm sure there are other places that you never expected to, set foot on. So tell us about some of those exotic locations. I mean, I know that you didn't have a lot of time to go out and, check out the scenes, but, I mean, there were like some standout moments, like, for example, in Puerto Rico, when Madonna decided to like almost shut down the entire country by rubbing the flag all over her nether regions. But, any other standout moments from your world travel?
You know what's so weird about that? I just have to back up and say, because I remember at that finale, it was Holiday. There were the little Puerto Rican flags. They were all over. Yeah. And what I remember seeing was her patting her forehead, but I don't remember that. But it did come out in the paper, and I'm like, did she do that? Where was I? Like, I do remember her patting, but I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. So many of the countries were just unbelievable. Of course, Israel, we did get to tour and see, a lot of areas in Israel. They had like the Scud missile at the time. There was one that had like landed and didn't explode. They had to show us that, which I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Istanbul was amazing. It was weird because, of course, with her gay show or whatever, we did have those protests happening, which they shielded us from. Like, we didn't really know, how intense that was. But I just think that in those countries, it was just a little. We'd go out, even in Rio, they were like, don't ever go on Ipanema Beach by yourself. Don't even have groups, so we sort of had little clues along the way and things that were, just ways to be careful in different countries. Cause people are nuts and you never know. But Istanbul was just incredible. Israel was amazing. Puerto Rico was amazing, except for the crotch incident. We went to, she took us to dinner in Puerto Rico. It was really fun. We had a dinner, and I feel like it was like a Polynesian menu. It was very random, but it was great. And of course, my best memory was I got to eat in the Eiffel Tower with Jean-Paul Gaultier, Madonna, and Christopher Giacone. That was
amazing.
That was the highlight of my entire trip.
Wow.
So awesome. What would you say is the final word on why there were only 3 dates in the United States?
I mean, I think she just didn't want to deal with all the backlash from Sex Book. I mean, that's kind of the vibe that I got. And it was such a bummer because, of course, I wish we did more here. It was such a great show, and I wanted more.
She was
people to
punishing
see it.
us.
Totally.
She's like, okay, fine. Y'all don't want me to listen. You don't want to listen to my music. You don't want to play my videos. I'm not going to be here. So,
That's
fine.
it. I was like 3. What do we do? Philly, New York, and Detroit.
Detroit, yeah.
Yeah. And it was just, way too fast. But yeah, it's grueling, getting on that plane and going. I'm sure you heard about our incident when we flew from Puerto Rico to Buenos Aires when the plane hit that. It's like an air pocket thing.
No, why did no one tell us this?
Yeah,
oh my God. Well, you're going to hear it from me.
And you'll be able to hear the rest of our interview with Christopher Childers next week on the show, so make sure to tune in for that. You'll hear more stories about the Girlie Show, including a very secret romance he had during the tour. And remember, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at MLVC Podcast. You can also donate to the show on Venmo at MLVC Podcast, as well as become a subscriber on Patreon, patreon.podbean.com/MLVC Podcast. Just remember, everybody, you make our lives much brighter. Talk to you again soon.